Hi, I'm Darren, and I have a story that I read on the internet.
Hi, I'm Drew, and I have a crazy story about a psychedelic frontman that brainwashed his band members.
Hi, I'm Chris, and this is a story about love backfiring.
What does all this have to do with Brainwash? Find out in this episode of History Bluffs. Hello and welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. It's where truth is stranger than fiction. And now I want to welcome to the show, it's your host, it's Alan!
Hey! Welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. Hopefully you're a fan by now, because somehow we have brainwashed you into watching and listening to our show on a regular basis.
I think we've got them by now.
That's right.
We've got them.
We got you. We
Huzzah.
happen to be using that topic for today's episode of History Bluffs. We're joined by three brainy historians here tonight. And we've got a game here. And if you've never been brainwashed by us to watch and listen to our show multiple times, we're going to tell you the rules.
That's right, Alan. It's a game show. So let's take a look at those historian rules. Those of you who can see them, great. If you can't see them, Alan's going to read them.
That's right. The historians will be inspired by today's topic. The true stories will be factual. But if it is a bluff story, then the crux of said story must be fictional. And if you are watching or listening to this live, please no help from you. We don't want to spoil the reveal of who is a buff and who is a history bluff.
There it is again.
There it is again.
The bluff sound. That's the sound
bluff.
bluffing makes.
I'm scared.
Dramatic bluff sound.
Wouldn't that be great, Alan, if every time someone lied on like a broadcast, it just did that?
Yeah, that would make the game way easier, Adam, because
Not just you would all.
No,
you
means
and you
all
alone
broadcasts.
know the truth.
Yeah.
Any broadcast.
Yeah, I mean all broadcasts. Like, you know,
yes.
it's an election year, so that would be interesting.
That would be a great debate to watch.
Someone get me a genie lamp. I have a wish.
I think some networks
man.
would lean on that heavier than other networks.
I think they would.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
they'd be debatable, I'm sure. But
Well,
anyway,
anyway. Okay.
anyway, that's that.
All right.
We're
Oh.
brainwashing you into being more political, and we don't want to do that right now.
No,
we
we
want
don't.
to introduce our round tracker, Adam.
Oh my God, the round tracker. Here's this beautiful piece of technology over your head, and that is how we'll track the rounds.
That's right. We're going to track the rounds. There are 3 rounds. The first one is timed at 75 seconds. The second one is timed at a full minute. And the next one is going to knock off an additional 15 seconds to drop it down to 45. And then at the end, we will find out the truth. But Adam,
Yeah.
you want to kick off the first round?
Let's kick this off, Alan. Let's go to round number 1. Hey, round number 1. It's looking good. Here we are.
Round number 1. You probably know our historians from previous episodes. We're going to bring out our first historian, Darren. Darren, we're going to hear from you in your first round of your story inspired by Brainwash.
My story begins, as is often the case with my stories, on Reddit. About 4 months ago, a user named Mental Somewhere 2341 was pretty upset when a friend of theirs misused the word literally. Like it's literally one of Mental Somewhere 2341's pet peeves. Though there was no mention of whether or not Mental Somewhere literally has a pet or just figuratively has one. But the incident in question that caused a figurative shitstorm on Reddit was when their friend mentioned someone they knew who was literally brainwashed. Mental Somewhere 2341's point was that to be literally brainwashed would mean that he would have to have his skull opened up and squirted with water, and presumably some sort of soap, and that scrubbing would be involved. Tokyo Briff disagreed, saying that the word brainwash does not mean to have your brain taken out and scrubbed with soap and water. And Assumption Live 4208 agreed, saying it's a metaphor, just like cuckolding. Further explaining that literal cuckolding means that your wife is having an affair, not that she's turning you into a cuckoo. But neither Tokyo Brifflim nor Assumption Live knew about a relatively new procedure developed in the UK that can drastically reduce the risk of death or brain damage in very premature babies. And I'll describe that procedure in the next segment.
Interesting. Drew, what's your take on this literal story?
Yeah, my first thought is stories like this is literally why the internet was created and why Reddit exists.
Literally.
To have these debates and points and counterpoints amongst our fellow internet Reddit users.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hot topic, and a little piece there at the end is now the UK is getting involved. So I feel like I need to hear more because I'm sure they will solve this debate.
Yeah. If anyone
Chris,
can, the
what do you
Brits
say?
can.
Chris,
Oh, sorry. I didn't
what's
hear
your
that.
opinion?
So, interesting. As Drew mentioned, Darren comes out and he's thrown out literally, figuratively, and then he begins just reading a bunch of quotes. And he makes, I love Darren doing this kind of stuff because he makes a point to really articulate the screen names of the people that he's quoting because he wants to make sure that they get the proper credit. And then at the very end, he kind of threw in the UK and these baby procedures that are coming, more information coming in the next round. So, one of those, kind of like a little bit of a MacGuffin. We have this going on over here. Then boom, here's this thing. So I'll be curious to see where this story goes in round 2.
Chris, it's called, in the business, we call it filler.
Or attribution as well. I mean, let's be, it's got to happen.
Sure, we can say that.
Okay.
Well, we can also say that it's Drew's turn for round 1. We're going to give him 75 seconds to tell his first chapter of his Brainwash story.
Right. Don Van Vliet was an American singer-songwriter who had a unique way of inspiring his fellow bandmates to the point that some say he was able to manipulate and brainwash them to do as he said. Now, you may have heard of Don by his stage name, Captain Beefheart, and his band, The Magic Band. Don was an oddball from his childhood. He was a prodigy sculptor, and his enthusiasm was so fervent that his parents were forced to feed him through the door to his sculpting room. His interest in music started in high school, where he went to high school with Frank Zappa. They became lifelong friends that was half competitive and half collaborative. Through Frank, Don was introduced to other musicians, and when they decided to form a band, Don began using the name Captain Beefheart. The first 2 albums by Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band were released in 1967 and 1968. Truth be told, Beefheart was frustrated. Even though he was the lead singer, it was clear that he had less musical expertise than his bandmates. He had bigger ambitions, but his odder suggestions were always vetoed as being too unconventional. So he did what anyone would do, is he fired several of his band members and then replaced them. And I'll tell you what happens next in round 2.
Wow. That's interesting. Chris, what do you say?
I think it's a very interesting story indeed. Captain Beefheart. You can't. Some people might say you can't make that up. Well, you can, and maybe Drew did. But then to throw out, Frank Zappa, and for Frank Zappa to have a childhood friend named Captain Beefheart, it explains a lot. So I'm curious to hear more in round 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Drew, or Darren, I did it again. Darren.
Again.
It never fails. Go on.
Nope.
I used to listen to that music, but my doctor told me I had to lower my cholesterol. So now I listen to vegan rock.
Yeah, it's
Nice. Cut
lighter
down on your
beat.
beef for your heart. All right. Well,
it's made of beets. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay. That's
okay.
all right. I'll
Chris,
stop.
you haven't gone yet for round 1. Let's bring you up.
I have not. All right.
All right, your round 1 begins now.
All right. When most people hear the term brainwashing, they often think of mind control as depicted in the movie Manchurian Candidate, where the Chinese army had captured an American platoon in Korea and brainwashed a soldier who assassinated several American politicians years later. But true brainwashing goes back to Far East philosophers of the late 19th century. Washing brains, as it was called then, meant something more like enlightenment, helping people teach to learn stuff or to change actions through repetitive actions, a technique used both in China and India. And it is generally accepted that a gentleman named Abiba Burhani, a philosopher and medical doctor in a small village outside Delhi, was the most famous advocate of the practice in the mid-1800s. Burhani, because of his fame and wealth, had been paired with his local tribe leader's daughter for prearranged marriage. However, she wanted nothing to do with Burhani because she was not attracted to him and he was a much older man. But Burhani, using his expertise, devised a plan to use his method to change her mind. More to come in round number 2.
Running out the clock.
All right.
Nicely done.
Drew, did you feel you were enlightened by Chris's story?
I feel like so far I'm enlightened. My interest is heightened, and I don't think he's spiting us. That's a bad rhyme.
That's good.
Good try.
No worse than beat
no
rock.
dating apps existed back then, so you had to have the old arranged marriage, and so it sounds like tale as old as time is forced to marry someone that they're not attracted to. So see what happens with this. How he's going to convince this girl to love him. I hope it has a happy ending.
Surely it does.
Who knows? Darren, what do you think?
Well, Chris's story takes place in a deli, and what's not in that deli is beef heart because it's in India.
Oh,
So that's the first thing.
that's true.
And the second food-related pun is that Burhani, were you eating chicken biryani and you came up with this story?
You get it. Okay.
Get it.
Wow.
Points for puns. Points for puns.
Well, that's what we do here. That's what we do.
Adam, speaking of points, let's move on to our next round where the points are doubled.
What? Oh, that's 0 times 2. Oh man, let's
Twice
get it
as
right
many.
on to it. Let's go to round number 2. Round 2. You heard the man. It's twice the pressure now. Let's get into this, Alan.
Right, we're only timing these at a minute each. Darren, take the center
Whoa.
stage, and we want to hear a little more about your story that somehow involves literal brainwashing.
Oh,
if
you'll
that.
see.
All right, floor is yours.
So one of the first people to receive this procedure was Isaac Walter Cox, who suffered a massive brain hemorrhage after his birth. Isaac was born 13 weeks premature. Doctors warned Isaac's parents that there was only a 1% chance their baby would even survive. And so when they learned about this new procedure, they felt they had nothing to lose, so they tried it. And the procedure works like this. 2 tubes are inserted into the baby's brain. One continuously drains old blood, debris, and toxins from the hemorrhage. The second tube slowly pumps clean artificial fluid in. Gradually, the fluid runs clear, indicating that the brain-damaging toxins are gone. Quote, the inside of the brain is literally washed out, said Andrew Whitelaw, professor of neonatal medicine at Bristol University. It's a bit like having a sink with a lot of coffee grounds in it, which are clogging up the drainage of the sink. In a recently published study of 77 premature babies who had bleeding in the brain after birth, those treated with the technique were far less likely to suffer disabilities later in life.
Wow. A medical breakthrough. Or is it, Drew?
Scared me.
You
Oh,
get scared when I correctly refer to you by your name.
I know. That startled me. I felt like interrogated right there. All right, 2 tubes, 1 drains, and 1 pumps. Sign me up. Where can I get this procedure done?
Sounds relaxing.
A bunch of fun.
I could use one right now. But it sounds crazy enough to just be true, because I feel like back then they tried all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's so crazy it could just work.
Yeah, well, truth is stranger than fiction on this show.
It is. Chris, what do you think? Is it fiction or is it true?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, 2 and it feels like it could be plausible, but it also feels like if it was, then why are we not hearing more about it today? It would be a much more widely used practice, I believe. So call me, paint me skeptical.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's see that round tracker, Adam, because I'm not
yeah,
sure
let's
where
check
we
it out.
are in the round.
Oh, yeah. We've only begun. We've only
Just begun. Drew,
Just
let's give you the
begun.
center stage, and we're going to give you an opportunity to elaborate more on Captain Beefheart and his brainwashing.
Let's get into that.
All right. To gain control and to be able to fully express his vision, Beefheart replaced those holding him back with younger, more impressionable players. The Magic Band slowly became less band-like and more cult-like. He gave them all stage names to match his, names like the Mascara Snake, Antenna Jimmy Siemens, and Zoot Horn Rollo. Beefheart recruited Zappa to produce the band's third album, and to write the songs for the album, he insisted that the band live and rehearse in a small rented communal house outside LA. It was here that Beefheart began imposing weird lifestyle rules and played mind games. He forced them to rehearse 12 to 14 hours a day, with band members often falling asleep right where they were playing, only to wake up to immediately start rehearsing again. He had a small piano put in the house, and even though he didn't know how to play it, he'd bang out ideas and demand the rest of the band decipher them into songs. And I'll tell you what happens next in round number 3.
All right, Chris, what's your opinion?
My opinion is this is eerily similar to Darren's story, only in that it involves a baby. This guy was clearly a big baby, a big fat baby, and didn't get his way.
Man.
And then he decided to. But I was very disturbed by younger, more impressionable band members. That he could, but I was most disturbed by the names that he gave them. That's the thing. So yeah, I'm this very selfish, a baby cult leader. That's what we're hearing about.
How about that?
Wow.
All right.
Darren, what do you
Well,
think?
this reference is going to be meaningless to probably everybody here, but I once played poker with Cliff McClough, who's an old sack guy who lives in Seattle now, and he came up with a game called Stink John Molly Ringwald, where you were each given a name, and you were required to refer to everyone else by the name he made up, which was impossible to remember. And if you didn't, you had to ante 25 cents to the pot. And so that's what I'm getting out of your story. Is it sounds like
made-up
Stink
names.
John Molly Ringwald,
It really does.
which was a game made up and played exactly one time, and everyone is glad.
Yeah, it's only played once because everyone just had to pay money. All right,
Yes.
it's round 2 still, and that means Chris gets his
It is.
opportunity to enlighten us a little bit further.
Okay, let's get into it. Here we go.
All right. So, Abiba Burhani, the prominent Indian philosopher and medical doctor, had been paired with his village leader's daughter named Rashani for a prearranged marriage. However, Rashani was not attracted to him. Burhani set out his plan to repeatedly be seen performing kind gestures for people throughout the village, always making sure that word of his deeds got back to someone inside Rashani's inner circle. For more than 3 months, every day, he would deliver food to families that he didn't know, surprise various children in the village with toys, help organize booths at the local bazaar. He did this daily, and to hedge his bet, he had a secret weapon in his back pocket. He hired a woman named Kanta Dehal, the maid to Rashani's family, to be his primary messenger and to filter these messages to keep hitting her with these messages. After 3 months, several people relayed word back to Burhani that his plan was working. Rashani was beginning to admire his action.
Ooh, as a ploy to get a girl. Darren, what do you think?
I think this is a Bollywood rom-com that Chris watched recently, and I'm just waiting for the really big dance number at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That's the best part.
Oh, yeah.
Drew, what's your take?
Chris would have us believe that the way to win a woman's heart is by doing nice things. That would
What?
never work. That
Never.
would never work. I think this is a bunch of BS.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
You know, Drew, he's not a nice guy, and he doesn't think anyone else can be. So,
Nope.
I
Look
think
at
it's
that
time to
face.
move on to round 3, Adam.
Oh man, let's do it. This is the final round. We're going into round number 3.
This is
So
it.
home stretch, Alan.
Final round. We're going to bring Darren up. We're going to finally hear the end of his literal brainwashing story.
Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
And so the good news in my story is there's hope for potentially hundreds of premature babies born each year that develop a life-threatening brain hemorrhage. But the bad news is that Mental Somewhere 2341 is that being outraged over the supposed incorrect use of language. They're literally being a twat, which in British English literally means an obnoxious or stupid person, regardless of gender. But sorry, I'm drifting away from the point, which, by the way, is the name of the brainwashing procedure. It's called DRIFT, which stands for Drainage, Irrigation, and Fibroneolytic Therapy. Results of a 10-year follow-up study show that babies that received DRIFT treatment were almost twice as likely to survive without cognitive disability. And that's literally a lifesaver.
Wow. There it is.
Great.
Beautiful
Well,
ending.
if that were true, it would be great. Drew, do you think there is a such thing as a drift, or is Darren being a drip?
I'm just glad that someone finally put Mental Somewhere 2341 in his or her place, because this, this was
It's
a
gone
long
on too long.
ago just to tell someone they were using the word literally wrong. But then again, that's what Reddit's for. So you don't just tell someone they're wrong. You go down this rabbit hole of why they're wrong, and we got this history lesson. It's so good it could be true, and we all know no one lies on Reddit. So
That is true.
There you go. Chris, what do you think?
No one lies on Reddit, and no one lies at History Bluffs either. Hope for hundreds of babies each year born prematurely. Again, I just come back to if this was a thing, how come we don't know more about it? It sounds like a wonderful procedure, a life-saving procedure. It sounds like amazing breakthrough, and I'm just curious as to why it's just held so closely to the vest and not talked about more, and also why don't they do this for other people besides babies that suffer from brain injuries? So yeah, that's where I think I'm skeptical, but I'm skeptical because I hesitate because I want to hear more names from Drew.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Oh, jeez.
Well,
All right.
that was one person. Let's go with Drew. He's got to go and
yeah.
finish up his story about Captain Beefheart and wherever direction he wants to take it.
I hope there's more names. Let's go.
Beefheart's ideas were like puzzles. One band member compared it to building a wall using bricks of unequal size. Band members were only allowed to leave the house once a week for groceries. One band member went a month eating nothing but a cup of soybeans per day. To fully assert complete domination at various points, he'd force someone into the barrel, where he'd berate them, sometimes for days, until they'd break and totally submit to his demands. This lasted 8 months. The result was Captain Beefheart's 1969 magnum opus, a 28-track double album titled Trout Mask Replica. Upon release, it sold poorly and failed to chart in the U.S. However, in 2012, Rolling Stone ranked it number 60 on their 500 greatest albums of all time.
Wow. Not only did Captain Beefheart make Rolling Stone's list, he made pretty high on a 500 list. That's impressive. Darren, what do you think?
Failed to impress and didn't chart in the U.S. Sounds like the one-man show I did a couple years ago. We'll see what Rolling Stones thinks of it in a couple decades, though.
There you go. Yeah, there's still time.
Yeah, it could be. Chris, what do you think?
Oh boy.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot here. You think of rock band members, and they're known as wild partiers, especially back in the '60s. The one thing I'm surprised we didn't hear any mention at all of Timothy Leary, because Captain Beefheart clearly was on LSD most of the time. But we hear all these crazy names and this crazy stuff, and how did he? He never quite tells us how he got these guys to submit to this treatment, and I surmise that rock band members would not put up with that. They would brawl. They would brawl in the hotel, in the room. I mean, they were famous for wrecking hotel rooms, with their friends. So I have a big flag up.
Oh, Chris is suspicious.
yep.
Well, Chris, we're going to see how suspicious they are of you after you finalize your story about this person who's spreading false information to get a girl.
Here we go.
All right, not quite false information, but he's using techniques to get a girl. Indeed, his name was Abiba Barhani again, and is a philosopher, and had come up with this plan to win the heart of his village leader's daughter. So, after 3 months, several people relayed work back to him that his brainwashing of Rashani, the daughter of the village leader, was working, and that she now liked him. But in what can only be called a cruel twist of fate, Kanta Dahal, the maid Barhani hired to influence Rashani, had fallen in love with him as well. And what was worse, he had fallen in love with her. And still worse, Rashani had completely fallen for him. So he was torn between the wealthy daughter and he was supposed to marry the kind-hearted maid he fell in love with. He gave up everything. He gave up his wealth, his stature, in the name of true love, and he married the maid, Kanta.
So he married the woman that he was after?
No, he married the
woman.
maid. He married his plant.
Okay, Darren, what do you think?
I was wrong. It's not a Bollywood movie. It's an Adam Sandler movie. It's Made in Manhattan. Yeah. And we all know how that turns
It
out.
turns out his true love was there the whole time.
Oh.
The unsuspecting maid. Drew, what do you think?
Well, to me, it sounds like a great story. In fact, it sounds like a match made in heaven for him to fall in love with. Sometimes it's those people that are in the background that you really bond with. So I think there really could be a Bollywood movie made out of this. So I don't know. I thought it was. Sometimes it's just meant to be.
Okay. Well, we have all three of our historians have told their stories. Let's hear some opinions. Darren, who do you think is the buff, and who do you think is the history bluff?
Oh goodness, I've heard this kind of story that Chris told before. Like I feel like I've heard these kinds of things in history of like kings or other people like that trying to do that to impress a lady. On the other hand, Drew's story is full of very specific, ridiculous names that I want to be true. So I'm going to say that Chris is making us think it's true because it sounds true, and that I want Captain Beefheart, to be real. So Chris is bluffing.
Best logic ever I've heard on this show.
Okay. And okay, Chris, you've been accused by Darren. Chris, what do you think?
I am torn because, like I said, Darren's story again, while very plausible and heartwarming, it makes me say to myself, well, why aren't they doing this with more frequency, and why isn't it not more well known? But at the same time, as much as I would love to believe Captain Beefheart existed, I just can't get over I can't get past that even if he is real, that he would be able to manipulate band members to do exactly what he wants them to not leave the house but once a week to go get groceries, somebody to wear a cup of soybeans per day. That doesn't happen with rock bands, especially in the 60s rock bands. So I'm going to accuse Drew of being bluff.
Drew has been accused by Chris. Drew, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I feel like I always say this. I could really flip a coin. I feel like Darren's story, being that it's on Reddit, has to be true. So I feel like Chris just looked like he just took like some Bollywood or Lifetime movie, and he took facts from something he saw on a Hallmark movie, and he just changed some names and shuffled things around. And I feel like Chris is the bluff as well.
Drew votes for Chris. Darren voted for Chris. Chris voted for Drew. Darren, no one voted for you.
Uh-oh.
Thereby, if
He
you are
could be.
bluffing, you are the outright winner
Wow.
with your literal brainwashing neonatal procedure.
Literally
Let's
the
see.
winner.
Adam, I don't know
Yes.
the truth, so you do. So I'm
I
going
do.
to step away for a moment.
All right. Well, then I'm going to line up our potential bluffers or truthers. We'll see how it goes, and I will present the result of the show. Was your bluff Darren? Was it Drew? Or was it Chris? Prepare yourself for the big reveal. Your bluff for this show has been Chris. Oh.
Good luck.
No.
So what that means is you fooled no one today, Chris.
You fooled- No one was
Absolutely no
fooled.
one. That's okay. That's okay. So, so was it a complete fabrication, Chris? Was it based on anything true?
It was a complete fabrication. It was not based on anything true. The only true part of it was that and it wasn't Indian. It was actually Chinese. But the technical it did start. You know, they used the use of the name. It's interesting because the word brainwashing from a perspective of mind control really took off during the Cold War and after World War II. But it was a phrase that had been coined in the 19th century, the mid 1800s in China, but it translated to washing brains. So ironically, Darren,
Wow.
right on there. But no, everything else was true. False. All of the names that I picked up, I got out of a story that I've been reading on artificial intelligence. They're all CEOs of big AI companies.
That's great. Perfect.
Nice.
Well,
All right.
Drew, I knew that there was a Captain Beefheart, even if the other historians didn't. I
had no idea.
An album in my college radio station by Captain Beefheart, and also Captain Beefheart's name is listed on a blackboard in School of Rock, written by Jack Black on the board.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
So yes, he is someone from music history. People should have some understanding of. I didn't know his background with Frank Zappa or the other stuff about sharing a home with so many bandmates. That's interesting. Drew, anything else you'd like to add?
I didn't really. I kind of felt like as I was looking at it, I feel like I know this, and so I did go on Spotify and listen to a couple songs, and I did recognize some songs. It was just I just didn't know it was them. So, but this I am curious to look up this album that Rolling Stone ranked. And for some reason, I need to do some more digging, but I didn't. That particular album was not available on Spotify, at least what I saw. So it's maybe it's only special. You have to really search for it, I guess.
Okay. Well,
All
Darren,
right.
there really is a procedure for neonatal care for brain bleeding and such. Tell us,
Well,
what do you know?
my story is absolutely true. First of all, in that mental somewhere 2341 is a twat who doesn't understand how literally it doesn't mean literal. It means it's an exaggeration. But yes, the drift procedure is real. It was created in the UK around the turn of this century and tested through about 2010 or so. And the reason you don't hear about it is the condition is pretty rare. Maybe only a few hundred children each year that are born prematurely suffer this condition. So it'd be very rare for you to know someone who not only had a premature baby, but had one that had this kind of brain injury.
Wow. Wow, no kidding. That's amazing.
It is amazing. One of the many things you'll learn here on History Bluffs, right, Adam?
Indeed. Yeah, we are both educational and comedy. You learn and laugh. Alan, it's been an awesome show. Thank you so much for hosting. I learned, I laughed, especially because you guys, Darren and Drew and Chris, we appreciate you coming out and giving us the learns and the laughs. We are History Bluffs. We're here every week. We stream live. You can catch us on YouTube and Twitch, and you can listen where you get your audio podcasts. See you next time.